I was sitting in my favorite armchair on a quiet Tuesday evening, the steam rising from a cup of coffee I had just brewed, when my phone vibrated with a series of notifications that didn't just ruin my night, they effectively ended my life as I knew it. It was a group text from my younger brother, David, but as I read the words, I realized it was a joint statement from my mother, my two sisters, and David himself. The message was cold, clinical, and so devastatingly final that it felt like someone had reached into my chest and squeezed my heart until it stopped. It read, "After a lot of discussion as a family, we've decided that we need significant distance from you for our own mental health and well-being. Your presence in our lives has become a burden we are no longer willing to carry. Please stop contacting all of us completely. Do not call, do not text, and do not show up at the house. We need you to respect this boundary permanently." There was no explanation, no chance for a rebuttal, and within seconds of reading it, I saw that I had been removed from the family group chat and blocked on every social media platform. In an instant, I was an orphan with living parents, a brotherless man, and a stranger to the people I had spent 35 years protecting, funding, and loving. But what they didn't realize in their rush to discard the burden was that I wasn't just the family scapegoat. I was the family's foundation, and when you remove the foundation, the whole house comes crashing down. Was I wrong for what I did next, for taking them exactly at their word and cutting off the massive financial and logistical support system they didn't even realize I provided? Or would you have done the same thing if your family treated 30 years of sacrifice like a toxic debt they wanted to settle for zero? I need to tell you the whole story, because while they now tell the world I'm a cold-hearted monster who abandoned them in their time of need, the truth is that I simply gave them exactly what they asked for: a life without me. To understand why my family thought they could just delete me like a spam email, you have to understand the role I've played since I was 15 years old. My father left us when I was just a teenager, leaving my mother, Brenda, with 4 kids and a mountain of debt. As the oldest, I didn't get to have a rebel phase or a carefree college experience. I stepped into the vacuum he left behind. I worked 3 jobs while finishing high school, handing my entire paycheck to my mother so my sisters, Chloe and Megan, could have new clothes for school, and so David could play club soccer. I was the one who fixed the leaking roof, the one who negotiated with the debt collectors, and the one who made sure there was a turkey on the table every Thanksgiving. I grew up fast, and I grew up hard, fueled by the belief that family was everything. I built a successful career in commercial real estate through sheer grit, and as my income grew, so did my family's lifestyle, funded entirely by me. My mother hasn't worked a day in 20 years because I bought her a beautiful condo and paid every single one of her bills, from her mortgage to her Netflix subscription. Chloe and Megan both had their weddings paid for by me, and when David wanted to start his luxury car detailing business that never actually made a profit, I was the one who signed the lease on his shop and covered the overhead. I became the family's personal ATM, their handyman, their therapist, and their punching bag. Whenever something went wrong, it was my fault. Whenever they needed money, it was my responsibility. I thought I was being a good son and brother, but I was actually just training them to see me as a utility rather than a person. The tension started to shift about 2 years ago when I finally met Sarah. Sarah is a strong, independent woman who saw the dynamic for exactly what it was: a parasitic relationship. She started asking me why I was missing our date nights to go fix David's lawnmower, or why my mother was calling me at 11 p.m. to complain about a light bulb she could easily change herself. Slowly, I started setting small boundaries. I told David I wouldn't be paying for his shop's electricity anymore, and I told my sisters I couldn't fund their girls' trip to Chillum. The reaction was immediate and venomous. Rebecca, my mother, started telling the others that Sarah was controlling me and that I was changing. They didn't see a man finally finding his own happiness. They saw their golden goose starting to fly away. They started a smear campaign within the family, twisting every help I gave into an act of manipulation. If I paid a bill, I was trying to control them. If I didn't pay a bill, I was abandoning them. The final straw came during my mother's 65th birthday dinner, which I had planned and paid for at a 5-star restaurant. Sarah couldn't make it because of work, and my sisters spent the entire night making snide comments about her, eventually calling her a gold digger, which is hilarious considering I was the one paying for the very chairs they were sitting in. When I finally stood up and told them to show some respect or I would leave, they went silent. I thought I had finally set a boundary. I didn't realize they were already planning the execution. 3 days after that dinner, I received the "We need distance" text. It was a coordinated strike. They had waited until David's shop lease was paid for the month, and until my mother's quarterly taxes had been settled by my accountant. They wanted to make sure they got one last hit of my resources before cutting the cord. I sat in that chair for hours, the coffee going cold, realizing that my family didn't just want distance. They wanted to hurt me. They wanted to show me that I was replaceable. They wanted to humiliate me, but they had made one fatal mistake in their mental health calculation. They had forgotten that I owned the life they were currently living. They thought that by blocking me, they were taking away my power. They didn't realize they were actually releasing me from my obligations. If I'm a burden and a toxic presence, then surely my money, my credit, and my legal protection must be toxic too, right? So that's the situation I was in. I was a man who had sacrificed his youth, his savings, and his peace of mind for a family that decided I was an embarrassment and a burden. The moment I asked for a shred of respect, I was standing at a crossroads. I could have gone to their houses, begged for forgiveness, and offered more money to get back into their good graces. Or I could take their request for total distance, literally. I could become the ghost they wanted me to be. Before I tell you about the blackout protocol I initiated and how my mother's condo went from a palace to a problem in 48 hours, I want you to pause and comment below. What would you have done? Would you have tried to talk it out and save the relationship? Or would you have pulled the plug on the people who threw you away? Is family blood always thicker than water? Or can it become a poison you have to flush out? I really want to know your thoughts because for a split second I felt like the bad guy. But now, looking back, I realize I was just the janitor who finally stopped cleaning up their mess. I didn't reply to the text. I didn't even try. I followed their instructions to the letter. I contacted my accountant and my lawyer the very next morning with a simple instruction: total blackout. For 20 years, I had been the silent engine of their lives. Now, it was time to turn the engine off. My mother's condo was technically held in a trust that I controlled. I had been paying the HOA fees, the property taxes, the utilities, and a monthly stipend into her account. I instructed my lawyer to stop all payments immediately and to notify the trust that the primary beneficiary, me, was withdrawing support. Since the condo was in my name, I didn't evict her. I simply listed it for sale. I gave her the legal minimum notice, but because she had blocked my number, she didn't see the initial emails from the law firm. I canceled the company credit cards that my sisters used for emergencies, which usually meant shoes and spas. I withdrew my personal guarantee on David's business lease. This was particularly devastating because without my guarantee, the landlord required a 6-month deposit, which David didn't have. I also canceled the family cell phone plan, the car insurance policies I was paying for Chloe and Megan, and even the health insurance premiums I was covering for my mother. The silence lasted exactly 4 days. That's how long it took for the distance. They wanted to meet the reality of their bank accounts. The first sign was when David's phone stopped working. Then, my mother's credit card was declined at the grocery store. Then, my sisters realized their emergency cards were dead. Because they had blocked me, they couldn't even call me to scream. They had to go through my lawyer. My mother sent a frantic email to my attorney saying there must be a mistake, and that her loving son would never let her go without power. My lawyer's response was a masterpiece of cold, legal prose. Per your text message dated Tuesday, our client is respecting your request for total distance and a complete cessation of contact. As he is a burden to your well-being, he has removed himself entirely from your financial and logistical affairs so as not to distress you further. The distance they wanted evaporated instantly. Suddenly, they were showing up at my office, but I had already instructed security that I was respecting a family boundary and was not to be disturbed by them. They tried to show up at my house, but Sarah and I had already left for a 2-week vacation in the mountains where there was no cell service. By the time we got back, David's shop had been shuttered. My sisters were in the middle of a massive fight because their husbands had to find out why their free car insurance had suddenly vanished, exposing years of lies about how much money they were actually contributing to their households. But the biggest blow was the condo. My mother was forced to move into a small 1-bedroom apartment that David had to pay for, which he couldn't afford. The burden they wanted to get rid of was actually the only thing keeping them from the reality of their own mediocrity. The aftermath was a storm of public shaming. They took to Facebook, making long posts about how I was financially abusing my elderly mother and how I had turned my back on my own blood. Because of a controlling girlfriend, they tried to play the victim, but I had kept every single receipt. I had the text message asking for distance. I had the bank statements showing the millions of dollars I had poured into them over the decades. I had the emails where David begged for just one more loan. I didn't post them publicly, but I sent a digital folder to our extended family, the aunts, uncles, and cousins they were trying to lie to. Once the extended family saw the distance a text followed by the ledger of my generosity, the shaming stopped. My family became pariahs in their own circle because nobody likes a person who bites the hand that feeds them for 30 years. It's been a year now. I haven't spoken to any of them. I married Sarah in a small ceremony on the coast, and for the first time in my life, I didn't have to pay for anyone else's dinner or worry about my sister's snide comments. My mother tried to send a letter a few months ago, a half apology, where she still managed to blame me for overreacting, but I didn't even finish reading it. I've realized that the distance they gave me was the greatest gift I ever received. I have more money in my savings than I ever thought possible because I'm not funding 4 other lives. I have peace. I have a wife who loves me for who I am, not for what I can buy her. My brother is working a regular job as a mechanic, and my sisters have had to actually get jobs to maintain their lifestyles. They are finally living the lives they should have been living all along, without a burden like me to hold them up. The moral of this story is that boundaries are a 2-way street. If you tell someone they are a burden and ask them to disappear, You don't get to choose which parts of them disappear. You don't get the money without the man. You don't get the security without the toxic presence. I stopped being a safety net and started being a person, and if that makes me a monster in their eyes, then I'm the happiest monster you'll ever meet. I didn't ruin my family. I just gave them the independence they pretended to want. Like this video if you think they got exactly what they asked for. And subscribe for more stories about finding the strength to walk away from people who only value you for what you can give them. Share your final thoughts on my blackout protocol in the comments. Was I too cold, or was it the only way to make them understand the value of a foundation? I'll see you all in the next story. ***, would you like me to generate a VIP-style long title and a 2-word powerful tagline for this specific The Foundation story as well? ***.